This is probably the most expensive build I have ever played in Path of Exile. At the time of this recording, of course. Who knows when it will be bested. It is a build that you can now see on the screen doing some Vaal Temple farming, which is pretty important because this build came to me as a result of trying to find a solution to a problem that I have with my Forbidden Rite build in Vaal Temple farming, which is my favorite way to farm in Path of Exile. However, if you're just here for time codes and links and whatnot, you can find those in the description box below. Otherwise, we'll talk a little bit about the actual build, the reasoning, and then we'll go through the gear and such. But this is not a creation of my own making. No, this is a build that is of Crouching Tuna's making. It is his Mage Blood Poison Spark build. One of the reasons it's so horrifically expensive and way beyond my wheelhouse, and I'm saying that knowing full well I walk around in stasis prisons more often than not, is because of that Mage Blood. Mage Blood is an item that defies reason and is nothing more but hubris made manifest. That item is unreasonable. But it is also, as far as I have seen, the only reasonable solution to the problem that I'm having. As you can see, I'm doing Vaal Temple farm. Vaal Temple farming is an interesting way to approach the game, but it means you don't quite know what mods you're going to get if you're trying to use that keystone that allows you to change and randomize the corrupted maps, which is what the Vaal Temple maps are. Now, there is one mod that has been plaguing me for several leaks, which is the Less Recovery mod. It pretty much ruins any iteration of my Forbidden Rite builds, because Forbidden Rite hurts yourself to do all kinds of interesting mechanical stuff, but if you don't recover, which you can't quite easily do if you have 96% less recovery on the map mod, you're pretty much doomed to end your own life every single time you hit that mod, that is. It's a rare mod, luckily enough, but still frustrating to hit it. So I've been trying to search for a solution to that, which means not Forbidden Rite, but I still want to kind of feel the same playstyle. So I've been trying things out like Vaal, Lightning Strike, and now Spark as well, which seems to be a good alternative, but all roads lead to Mage Blood due to the mana cost reduction and just the overall quality and attributes, or at least not attributes, but like stats you can get from that facilitate a lot of the builds. Even the cheaper ones, like a Death's Aura build, still requires Mage Blood if you want to do Vaal Temple farming properly, quickly, and succinctly. It is insane. Maybe you guys have a solution for me here, maybe some trickster angle that I am not aware of, but it is an incredible build. It is incredibly fun to play. It's horrifically expensive. I'm not even done with the build. I'm still trying to find upgrades. I'm still using budget solutions. And let's go through those in just a second, but otherwise, my god. Mage Blood is nothing more but hubris made manifest. So let's talk a little bit about the gear, the gems, and of course the passive tree, and some of the budget solutions I'm currently running until I can find the more finalized versions. Before we do though, once again a reminder, this is not a creation of my own making. This is based off Crouching Tuna's build, which is also why I'm very happy with my character name, which is a wonderful reference, Crouching Wolf Hidden Tuna. If you want to see his POV, you can go to his Twitch channel, which is just crouching_tuna, I believe, and then he has a command that shows all his builds, and he's a far more experienced builder than I am. I'm very niche. He is far more capable in a much wider area. However, I have adjusted this build slightly due to budget constraints, and perhaps I will change things as it progresses, because this is my first time fully embracing a Mage Blood, and I am still trying to resolve the fact that I can't control my character because sometimes I move too fast. Suffering from success. It is a true nightmare. Anyway, speaking of nightmares, the Mahuxel's Machination Steel Kite Shield, which used to be budget, is no longer budget as a result of the Build of the League video and several streamers and content creators using it. But this is what I was using in my budget Forbidden Rite build, which is very similar in terms of setup to this build, which is why there's such a delightful overlap, and ultimately also why I decided to go with this build in an attempt to find that solution we spoke about in the gameplay section. Anyway, it's a wonderful shield, enables a lot of the defensive scaling in this build. You can check out the PoE wiki because it's too long to talk about. But it's a bunch of keystones, and in combination with one another, give us a bunch of max res, as well as incredible sustain and damage mitigation. On top of that, we are using a Whispers of Doom anointed Ashes of the Stars max rolled, which allows us to use Chaos and Poison scaling on Spark. We'll see through that in the gem section. On top of that, we also have the Mage Blood. Nothing fancy here. I still have to enchant it. I am not going to double corrupt it. I am not brave nor bold enough. And also we are using, in terms of uniques, the Asenath Gentle's Touch Silk Gloves with the spare on hit, since we are double cursing. And then AoE gems is not necessary unless you want to hit 90% fire res, which we do and we want to, so we have it. In terms of the chest, just a basic Cloak of Flame. I do want to get either a +1 max res here, so I can use a different mastery on the tree, or just +2, +2, +2, or some additional damage. It just would be nice to have. On top of that, we are using a rare crafted scepter. This is not the ideal base. You want the elemental overload base from Heist, or otherwise a 40% increased elemental damage base, since we can get elemental overload on the tattoo keystone, maybe, if you're lucky. But it's simply just cast speed, lightning spell, lightning, flat lightning percentage, as well as chaos damage craft. Also arcane surge, which is lovely. It does have critical strike chance for spells, which is not what we want. I would have preferred maybe damage over time, or maybe the +1/+1 version of the staff on the correct base. But like I said, budget restraint. It's not even 30%, so we have ways to improve that. In terms of the helm, we have, of course, tier 1 life. We have the mitigation craft, the spell suppress, the mana reservation through loathing, and tier 1 intelligence. The fact that I have 13% spell suppress here means I have to use a tattoo, an additional tattoo for capping my resistance, but that's fine. I only lose 8% projectile speed on that. It's not the end of the world, and it saved me a bunch of money. As well as the implicit for more mitigation cast speed, and of course the horrifically expensive Spark enchant. Lab runners are making bank this league. I mean, they're always making bank, but this is insane, by the way. The rings are my favorite new tech. You can actually get a double influenced ring, slam zeal, and then get either tier 1 chaos res, or hopefully tier 1 poison damage, and then do a suffix lock if you have an open suffix, and then do a chaos reforge to try to hit the other mod. And then lock suffix to do caster reforge to hit the shaper mods. I'm going to recraft these rings. If I hit the GG ring, which I'm hoping to do, which is essentially everything you see here, tier 1, but with an ailing life unveil and then crafted damage, I might just get a Touch of Calandra ring, or Calandra's Touch ring, to copy that. But that's pretty much what we're running twice. Cast speed, poison damage, chaos res, life per enemy hit with spells for that sustain and that resistance. It also allows us to use caster catalysts to boost that even further, because cast speed remains awesome. And on top of that, in terms of rares, we have the exact boot that I had on my Forbidden Right, because I pretty much just used that. It was almost perfect. I have to recraft the chilled aspect to not hit, since I am ailment immune and I am this time not hitting myself, so I can actually benefit from the additional movement speed if I have not been hit recently. Other than that, you can see the wonderful strength, which is required, spell suppress, chaos res, and life, which is very good. In terms of flasks, we are capped without Progenesis active. We are missing 5% fire res, max fire res, and 5% max chaos res, or 6 technically. 5 because the shield needs to have a certain leech effect going, which gives you the buff, which we don't have right now because we're not fighting. And also, I'm using a mastery to get my withering sorted, because I'm not yet sure about one of my gems. We'll get to that in just a second, though. Other than that, we are using, of course, a super juiced silver flask with movement speed, cast speed, super juiced quicksilver, super juiced jade flask evasion, and the mana cost ruby, of course, as well. Super juiced to make everything free. That's pretty much it for the gear. When it comes to the gems, I pretty much have everything locked in. I miss one alt quality, and I still have to decide on one gem, so perhaps you guys in the comments can persuade me. We'll start with it, by the way. Anomalous Dread Banner, which is just defense. We have the mana reservation for it. Anomalous Blood and Sand, which is mostly here for the projectile speed. Well, it's entirely there for the projectile speed. Enhance to improve the aforementioned. But also I have a second enhancer that I'm leveling because I don't know what else to put in this green one. I am thinking either an anomalous withering step, which seems a little wasteful since we are Pathfinder and I can get a mastery for instant 15, or a divergent plague bearer, I believe, the one that gives you more chaos damage over time multiplier, and then I can perhaps burn down those bosses even faster. Or perhaps there's another option out there that I am not privy to. I just don't like too many buttons because they hurt my hand if I constantly have to spam buttons to deal with everything that is there to deal with. I'm already frustrated at the notion that I have to use smite to get more damage. This actually has to be a phantasmal smite for more cast and attack speed, which I have bound to my faster attacks for smoothness, but also shield charge. I need to get the Vaal version for the obvious reasons, but other than that, it speaks for itself. We also have a Divergent Herald of Agony, which some people bind to faster attacks. I do not. Immortal Call, cast when damage taken, which is very lovely because we have a lot of skill effect increases, or skill effect duration increases with tattoos and nodes on the tree, so Immortal Call is actually quite long and lovely as a result. For our 6th link, we have Spark, Phantasmal Spark, of course. I found, and this is a weird one, the Phantasmal Vaal Spark was cheaper than the regular Phantasmal Spark. I don't know why. We don't use Vaal Spark, but we still get the Phantasmal aspect, and I spend 6 less divines on it. It was really weird. Not sure why that is. Maybe I'm missing something, but it's still a Phantasmal Spark, and we don't use the Vaal Spark, and I save money. Anomalous Spell Echo, obviously more cast speed. Very similar to the Forbidden Rite setup. Awakened Elemental Focus. Divergent Void Manipulation. The Awakened gives +1 to Chaos, but Spark is not a Chaos skill. We are simply converting it due to the Phantasmal ult quality with Ashes to do entirely Chaos damage, but that does not make it a Chaos skill. So Divergent Void Manipulation is slightly better, especially in combination with the shield, since we need a little leech to be able to get our buff reliable. Now we get some leech from the tree, but this kind of smooths it out even further. We also have a Divergent Inspiration, which is very, very comfortable, makes it so that the mana cost is 0, and then we finish that off with an Awakened Unbound Ailments, just for some good damage. On our Asenath, which is +2 AoE gems, we have Purity of Fire, which allows us to get a 24 Purity, and with enough aura effect, which we have through tattoos, we can get up to 90 max res with the buff from the shield. Purity of Elements as well for ailment resistance or ailment immunity, as well as more conversion from Fizz to Fire through our Watcher's Eye that we have. We have a triple Watcher's Eye. Enlightened level 4 to be able to run the auras, although we have a bunch of excess mana still. Wonder what I can do with that. And Divergent Arctic Armor, because if we are casting, we are standing still, and this is a lot of extra damage mitigation, especially since we are converting a lot of our mitigation into fire, and taking less physical is always good. Since we have no armor, we try to convert most of the physical damage taken. Speaking of things we are trying to convert, we are using the Forbidden Rite boots that I had. Once again, I have to recraft the Unveil, but I've been unable to hit after 5 times, so that's fun. Flame Dash is delightful. Need to actually level this up a little further. I was using Frostblink, or I want to use Frostblink, but Flame Dash is always more recommended due to its charges. Divergent Malevolence. This is also going to give us an interaction with our Watcher's Eye, which is lovely, but also it is a massive damage boost and skill effect duration boost, courtesy of Divine Blessing, as well as Divergent Inspiration. It's pretty much up all the time, and since we are a casting build, it is almost instantly casted. Very, very solid. So here we are at the passive skill tree, which is also surprisingly expensive. This league has been fairly unique in its cost distribution when it comes down to builds. But let's start at the beginning. The wonderful Ascendancy. We are picking up Master Toxicist for Prolif, Withering and Withering Effect, Nature's Reprisal. We are also picking up Nature's Boon, because we do have 4 magic flasks, so that is incredible value. And that's pretty much it. We are switching to 2 minor nodes as opposed to 1 minor node and 1 big node, because we have Mage Blood, and Nature's Adrenaline doesn't do much for flasks that are permanently active. It would help with uptime on Progenesis, but since we are already chaos capped, as I explained in the gear section, without Progenesis up, There's no real need to keep just desperately trying to keep Progenesis active permanently. It's just an extra layer of defense during mapping and such. Because during bosses, you can use it whenever you feel like it's needed, but most of the time you can avoid most things, especially with the speed that we have, since I can't sometimes control my character because of how fast this is. Other than that, let's kind of go over it. The pathing is very similar to my Forbidden Rite build, but instead we are using a lot more tattoos. We have projectile speed. We take one note here, ballistics, just because more projectile speed. We pick up charisma as well as its plus 10% aura effect. Mastery, which allows us to also combine with the improved 2% effect aura skills tattoos, courtesy of the Warrior's Tail, to get enough aura effect to boost our auras to give us 90% max res for fire. On top of that, we pick up these 4 nodes on this cross section for plus 4 to all max res, which is actually plus 2 but buffed due to the jewel to plus 4. We also pick up this keystone. We are trying to roll for elemental overload or maybe something like left shade, but anything that doesn't brick your build is good enough because you do have to take it so you can activate this 8 adjacent passive skill tree node. We are signing off here with a 4% chance to spell suppress. If, however, I had 14% on my helm, I would have been able to use another spell, projectile speed here, and I essentially would have been able to switch these two up. Going upward though, speaking of up, projectile speed, we pick up some more stats here. This mastery, 5% chance when you inflict wither to inflict up to 15 wither debuffs, I find comfy. In a perfect world, I would have either +1 on my chest with damage mods, or with the damage implicit, so I can take this. Otherwise, it probably is wiser to take the anomalous Withering Step skill gem, and then just put this into 1% max chaos res for more defense, so we have 90 chaos res and 90 fire res, which is probably what I will end up doing if I had to choose right now. We also have Revenge of the Hunted, just for more life and evasion. We pick up +1 intelligence skill gems because we are using an int gem. Before we hit the clusters, let's go down. More spell suppress. We get some armor here, which is irrelevant due to the Watcher's Eye. The Watcher's Eye, of course, is Rakiata, which allows us to get Tempered by War, which combined with the shield allows us to take no cold or lightning damage. It instead is all converted to chaos or fire, which is why we have built the way we are. The travel nodes are all projectile speed. The more projectile speed, the better. It is Spark after all. We pick up some life, more projectile speed. The notables have 1 and 2 fizz mitigations. I would have preferred a third one, but those are super expensive, and not to speak of a fourth one with this setup. I did briefly consider picking up Fervor due to my Flesh Flame Jewels, but those were still like 100+ divines. But it might be a solution for those who might end up hitting that to get a third fizz mitigation, which would be really, really good, because you want to have 2 more in addition to the 2 that I have in a perfect world. Speaking in things in a perfect world, piercing for our spark, very good, as well as more projectile speed. Before we go into the top half of the tree, let's talk about our cluster. This is a bit of a scuffed cluster that I rolled. 35% increased effect dexterity and 3% cast speed for lightning skills. I want that evasion to be life, and if I can get that particular cluster jewel, I would be very happy, because then I'm done. In a perfect world, it would be tier 1 dex, tier 1 life. I would also settle for tier 1 all attributes, maybe tier 2 life or something. Anyway, anything that gives me more life there, compared to the 35 and the cast speed would be great. We pick up 2 medium clusters, Circling Oblivion and Wicked Pal. They respectfully give us a delightful more chaos damage and skill effect duration, as well as more damage over time with duration, which scales poison really, really well. Same thing on the other side with some attributes and some chaos damage for the small note. Nothing too special. We have our old Stygian Abyssal Jewel here for Corrupted Blood immunity, cast speed, max life, and phasing. Although in a perfect world you wouldn't use that over here. You would maybe recraft the boot to have an Abyssal Jewel socket, which is also another solution, but I've never done that, so I have to look into that still. But all in due time. We also have a Watcher's Eye, a triple Watcher's Eye. Purity of Elements, Purity of Fire, Mitigation, or from Fist to Fire, and then also a unaffected by Poison while affected by Malevolence. Unnecessary because we have massive Chaos Res, of course, but it was the cheapest that I found, so why not? When in Rome, you go to McDonald's after all. Fatal Toxins for more damage including some poison hit chance. We also have a poison mastery to be effectively immune to crit, which is very good. Combined with the travel notes turning into projectile speed, we pick up some more life, including 50% increased maximum life on our chest piece, because we have no life mods on it, including no life implicit, so this is just a free 15. Very good. Then the color starts to change. We pick up an impossible escape, which allows us to pick up more skill effect duration because it is spark, more spell suppress, which is very lovely. It means you don't have to tech in resourcefulness. And of course, a 1 point increased max life just for value. Speaking of value, the intellect notes we can change, turn into skill effect duration, which helps spark and all the other buffs to stay alive longer. We pick up some spell damage leech, but more importantly, leech is instant, which will help not only to stay alive, but help us tremendously in keeping that buff active on our shield, which is +5 max res or fire as well as chaos in this particular setup. We pick up a little bit more extra poison chance, or at least poison damage on non-poison targets, because we do have explosions with Asenath, which is, for the record, very fun because I do Vaal Temple farming and all those bodies explode and they are gone. So detonate dead vessels are also gone, which is very, very lovely, including, of course, the left side, because we already have 100% poison chance. So just more poison. And cast speed is just delightful. And then we have Whispers of Tuna the Anoint. We already knew that. And then our final clusters, which is intellect, max life, increase effect, and 3% cast speed. This intellect allows us to turn most, if not all, yes, all of our travel notes of int into skill effect. I have to actually finish this off. And then we have a little bit more skill effect duration. That's kind of what it looks like right now. In a perfect world, I will get to level 100. I will simply fill this up and simply fill those 3 up as well, because I'm 95. So that's 3 skill points, 2 skill points there. And hopefully get a better cluster with some more life, so I have a little more life to work with, which would be very comfy, despite the fact I'm already able to tank the world. And that's kind of it. You can see how expensive it might be, or why it might be horrifically expensive. This is definitely a 1 league type of thing for me, but hopefully you can do better. Maybe you have some solutions to my questions. Maybe you have entirely different suggestions on how to overcome the struggles I've been having with the Vaal Temple shenanigans. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. Once again, this is a early stage build interpretation of the build that is from Crouching Tuna. You can check him out on Twitch. I recommend you do. He's also on YouTube. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Have a good night. Take care. And I am